Good afternoon and Salam Malaysia Madani. You are watching World Today. I'm Otto Othman. Before the full bulletin, here are the top 10 stories. His Majesty Sultan Ibrahim, King of Malaysia, arrived in St. Petersburg yesterday, a historic city and one of Russia's key centers of culture, architecture and heritage. Sultan Ibrahim's maiden special visit to St. Petersburg is at the special invitation of Russian President Vladimir Putin. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz activated the National Guard after federal agents fatally shot ICU nurse Alex Pretty in Minneapolis, prompting protests and tense confrontations with authorities. The incident has also sparked demonstrations in cities including New York, Washington, and San Francisco. 3 more Palestinians were killed in 2 separate Israeli attacks in Gaza. Meanwhile, 4 others were injured in an Israeli drone explosion in Gaza City. Medical authorities reported that 2 people were killed in eastern Tufah area and another person died in Khan Yunis. A total of 25 bodies have been recovered as the search and rescue SAR operations of the West Bandung landslide in West Java entered its 2nd day. National Agency for Disaster Management said all of the victims' remains have been handed over to the National Police's Disaster Victim Identification Team for identification. New Yorkers went outside Sunday to see the heavy snow that covered neighborhoods from Queens to Upper Manhattan. The storm disrupted travel but also gave many people a chance to enjoy the snowfall. Across Manhattan, buses used chains, snowplows cleared streets, and pedestrians carefully walked on slippery sidewalks. European Council President Antonio Costa arrived in India on Sunday as the EU and New Delhi worked to finalize a free trade deal after nearly 20 years of talks. Costa and European Commission President will be chief guests at India's Republic Day, followed by an EU-India summit aimed at sealing the agreement. Polish authorities are considering banning Chinese vehicles from military sites over security concerns. A Polish army spokesperson said the move aims to prevent risks from technology, hidden sensors, and data being transmitted without control. Polish media report that the rules could also affect cars made by U.S. company Tesla. Gold soared to a record high, surpassing $5,000 an ounce on Monday as investors turned to the safe haven asset amid rising geopolitical tensions. Tensions between the U.S. and NATO over Greenland have further boosted gold this year amid fears of financial and political uncertainty. World champions Cheng Tangji and Toh Iwei made history as the first Malaysian mixed doubles pair to win the 2026 Indonesia Masters in Jakarta. In women's doubles, Malaysia's top pair, Pearly Tan and M. Tina, won the title after their Japanese opponents gave a walkover in the final. Manchester United handed Arsenal their first home defeat of the season with a 3-2 win, shaking up the Premier League title race. Aston Villa's 2-0 win over Newcastle brought them within 4 points of Arsenal and level with Manchester City. Michael Carrick enjoyed a perfect start as United manager. Well, that's today's top news. Up next, the complete World Today Bulletin, bringing you the details that matter. Stay tuned. Thanks for staying with us. His Majesty Sultan Ibrahim, King of Malaysia, arrived in St. Petersburg yesterday, a historic city and one of Russia's important centers of culture, architecture and heritage. According to a post on Sultan Ibrahim's official Facebook page, His Majesty's special aircraft landed at Pulkovo International Airport at 2:38 p.m. local time. Upon arrival, His Majesty was received by the Governor of Leningrad Oblast, the Vice Governor of Leningrad Oblast, and the Chairman of the Committee for External Relations of St. Petersburg. Also present to welcome His Majesty was the Malaysian Ambassador to the Russia Federation, Dato' Cheong Lun Lai. Sultan Ibrahim's maiden special visit to St. Petersburg is at the special invitation of Russian President Vladimir Putin. Founded in 1703, St. Petersburg once served as the capital of the Russian Federation and is renowned for its classical architectural landscape as well as historic buildings that attract tourists from around the world. More than 160,000 Malaysians were reported to have visited St. Petersburg last year. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz activated the Minnesota National Guard after the fatal shooting of a U.S. citizen in Minneapolis on Saturday, sparking fierce protests and condemnation from local leaders in the second such incident this month. The shooting of Alex Pretty, an intensive care nurse, drew hundreds of protesters to the neighborhood to confront the armed and masked agents who deployed tear gas and flashbang grenades. The Minnesota National Guard was assisting local police at the direction of Governor Tim Walz, according to officials. Guard troops were sent to both the shooting site and to a federal building where officials have squared off with protesters daily. Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara said information about what led up to the shooting was limited. Troop deployment plans were first reported about a week ago, where the Pentagon ordered 1,500 soldiers to prepare for a possible deployment to the state. Crowds of protesters clashed with immigration officers in the Midwestern state's main city of Minneapolis, particularly since the fatal shooting of a woman by a federal agent on 7th January. Russia is avoiding commitment to a lasting and just peace in Ukraine and is refusing to accept a ceasefire in the war. Lithuania's President Gitanas Nausėda said after a meeting with Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky in Vilnius. Nausėda, who spoke at a press conference alongside Zelensky and Polish President, said Zelensky had presented the latest progress in peace talks on Ukraine initiated by U.S. President Donald Trump.
Pirmą kartą įsitikinome, kad Rusija vengia įsipareigoti teisingai ir tvariai taikai ir nesutinka su paliaubomis kaip būtina taikos įžanga. Bet koks susitarimas, kuris bus ateityje, turėtų užtikrinti Ukrainos nepriklausomybę, suverenitetą ir teritorinį integralumą. Daugiašalės Europos šalių karinės pajėgos dislokuotos Ukrainoje su JAV parama būtų esminis Rusijos atgrasimo veiksnys pulti vėl. Tęsiantis pokalbiams dėl taikos, Lietuva kviečia integruoti Ukrainą į Europos saugumo struktūras ir mokytis iš ukrainiečių karinės patirties.
On Friday and Saturday, Ukrainian and Russian negotiators held their first trilateral meeting, including U.S. mediators in Abu Dhabi, to discuss Washington's framework for ending the almost 4-year-old war, but no deal emerged. However, Moscow and Kyiv both said they were open to further dialogue and more discussions were expected next Sunday in Abu Dhabi. 3 more Palestinians were killed in 2 separate Israeli attacks in Gaza. Meanwhile, 4 others were injured in an Israeli drone explosion in Gaza City. Medical authorities reported that 2 people were killed in eastern Tufah area and another person died in Khan Yunis. Earlier, an Israeli drone exploded on the roof of a multi-story building in Gaza City. Previously, Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi warned that the displacement of more than 2 million Palestinians from the Gaza Strip would have serious security, economic and social impacts on Europe and the Western world. He also urged that the humanitarian aid be delivered to Gaza without any obstacles, that the full second phase of the current ceasefire agreement be implemented, and that immediate reconstruction take place in the region to ensure dignified life for its residents. A total of 25 bodies have been recovered as the search and rescue SAR operations of the West Bandung landslide in West Java entered its second day. All of the victims' remains have been handed over to the National Police's Disaster Victim Identification Team for identification. Triggered by heavy rain, the landslide barreled into villages and Java's West Bandung region early Saturday morning, burying residential areas and forcing dozens of people to evacuate the homes.
Dengan menurunkan alat berat merupakan satu upaya yang efektif, ya. Artinya dari material longsoran itu memang bukan hanya lumpur ya atau pasir yang bercampur lumpur, itu juga ada material-material seperti bekas rumah yang roboh seperti itu. Jadi memang banyaknya body pack yang ditemukan pun rata-rata mereka posisinya terjepit oleh material-material rumah yang roboh seperti itu.
In addition to the fatalities, 23 people were reported to have survived, while 81 others remain missing. Floods and landslides are common during the rainy season, which typically runs from October to March. The disaster comes after tropical storms and intense monsoon rains late last year triggered flooding and landslides that killed around 1,200 people and displaced more than 240,000 in Indonesia's Sumatra island. At least 13 bodies were recovered and more than 100 people remained missing after an inter-island ferry carrying more than 300 passengers and crew sank early Monday in waters off Basilan province in the southern Philippines. Now, the Philippine Coast Guard in southwestern Mindanao said the ferry was en route to Jolo Island in Sulu province from Zamboanga City when it went down near Balok-Balok Island. Now, the vessel had 332 passengers on record and 27 crew.
The search and rescue operation is ongoing, but what I can say is the ship is not overloaded. It has a maximum passenger capacity of 350, and the actual actual passengers on board, as declared by the master, is 332. The Coast Guard has immediately acted on it as soon as we received the distress call from the Sea Marshal on board.
The Coast Guard added it was actively coordinating to assist its station in southern Mindanao with search and rescue operations. In 2023, more than 30 people were killed when a fire ripped through a ferry in southern Philippines.
Menggosok baju sekaligus boleh menjimatkan elektrik.
Welcome back. We continue with story on India-EU trade. European Council President Antonio Costa arrived in India on Sunday as the EU and New Delhi seek to seal a free trade pact, capping nearly 2 decades of negotiations between the economic giants. Costa and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen are chief guests for this year's Republic Day celebrations in New Delhi on Monday before an EU-India summit the next day, where they hope to shake hands on an accord described as the mother of all deals. India, the world's most populous nation, is on track to become its 4th largest economy this year, according to International Monetary Fund projections. The EU eyes India as an important market for the future, while New Delhi sees the European bloc as an important source of much-needed technology and investment to rapidly upscale its infrastructure and create millions of new jobs. The trade deal is expected to open the way for reduced tariffs on European cars and wine and an expanded market for Indian electronics, textiles and chemicals. Negotiations were relaunched in 2022 after a 9-year pause, gaining traction last year amid rising global trade tensions. The pact would be a major win for Brussels and New Delhi, as both seek to open up new markets in the face of U.S. tariffs and Chinese export controls. Voting concluded in Myanmar's month-long election on Sunday, with the dominant pro-military party on course for a landslide victory in a junta-run poll critics said will only prolong the army's grip on power. Southeast Asian nation has a long history of military rule, but the generals took a back seat for a decade of civilian-led reforms. Now, that ended in 2021 military coup when the democratic figurehead Aung San Suu Kyi was detained. Civil war broke out and the country descended into a humanitarian crisis. The election's 3rd and final phase opened in dozens of constituencies across the country at 6 a.m. on Sunday, just a week shy of the coup's 5-year anniversary. Junta chief Man Aung Hlaing, who has not ruled out serving as president after the poll, toured voting stations in Mandalay wearing civilian clothing. Voting was not held in rebel-held parts of the country and in junta-controlled areas. Rights monitors said the run-up has been characterized by coincidence on the crushing of dissent. The Union Solidarity and Development Party won more than 85% of elected lower house seats and two-thirds of those in the upper house in the poll's first two phases. The official results are expected late this week. Polish authorities are considering banning Chinese vehicles from entering military sites over possible security risks. Now, a spokesperson for the General Staff of Polish Army said that the aim is to guard against risks related to technology, access to information, the number of sensors embedded, and data that can be transmitted without our knowledge and beyond control. Polish media report that the new measures could also apply to cars made by U.S. firm Tesla. According to the Defense Ministry, work is underway on restrictions regarding access by Chinese-made vehicles to protected military sites and facilities. Currently in Poland, a NATO and European Union member, it is up to commanders of military sites to authorize or deny access to vehicles equipped with audiovisual recording systems. New Yorkers dug out and took in the scene on Sunday as a heavy snowfall blanketed neighborhoods from Queens to Upper Manhattan, disrupting travel while drawing residents outdoors to enjoy the storm. In the Maspeth neighborhood of Queens, passerbys helped push a car stuck in the snow and others shoveled sidewalks and driveways. Across Manhattan, buses rolled by with chains on their rear wheels. Snowplows cleared streets, and pedestrians struggled to keep up their footing on slick slideways.
Yeah, I'm very grateful for all the bus drivers and the sanitation workers and all those people who are out working. So they're trying to keep people safe, and I hope the power stays on because that'll put all those Con Ed workers out working.
The snow, I think it's obnoxious because there's too much and we can't get out of the house unless we have to shovel or do anything. But it's my first time here in 3 years and I kind of miss it. So planning that maybe we can do something other than shovel and just play with the kids.
Snow, sleet, freezing rain, and dangerously frigid temperatures swept into the eastern two-thirds of the nation on Sunday. The National Weather Service's latest forecast for Sunday through Monday morning calls for heavy snow from Ohio Valley to the northeast, including up to 18 inches in New England. Gold jumped to a record high, topping the $5,000 an ounce milestone on Monday, extending a historic rally as investors sought to safe haven assets amid rising geopolitical tensions. Escalating friction between the U.S. and NATO over Greenland has further fueled gold's run this year over prospects of more financial and geopolitical uncertainty. On the geopolitical front, Ukraine and Russia ended a second day of U.S. brokered talks in Abu Dhabi over the weekend without a deal, with more discussions expected next weekend, even as overnight Russian airstrikes knocked out power for over 1 million Ukrainians amid sub-zero cold. Adding to the uncertainty, U.S. President Donald Trump said he would impose a 100% tariff on Canada if it follows through on a trade deal with China, warning Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney that a deal would endanger his country. The yellow metal soared 64% in 2025, underpinned by U.S. monetary policy, easing central bank demand, with China extending its gold buying spree for a 14th month in December and record inflows into exchange-traded funds. Spot silver, meanwhile, climbed above $100 an ounce for the first time on Friday, building on its 147% rise last year.
Dunia digital penuh dengan kandungan ganas, eksploitasi kanak-kanak dan buli cyber berleluasa di luar kawalan. Akta Keselamatan dalam Talian 20 2025 atau ONSA dikuat kuasa untuk melindungi rakyat. Pengguna boleh bertindak atas kandungan yang berisiko. Setiap laporan yang dibuat, platform digital wajib bertindak pantas terhadap penyalahgunaan digital. Dengan ONSA, internet kini lebih selamat untuk kanak-kanak dan keluarga kita.
Up next, Malaysia owns Indonesia Masters 2026. We begin our sports segment with badminton, the Indonesia Masters. Malaysia achieved a hat-trick in Istora Senayan on Sunday when 3 of the national doubles shuttlers emerged as champions. National women's doubles top pair, Pearly Tan and Tina, were awarded the title as their opponents from Japan, Arisa Igarashi, Miyu Takahashi, conceded a walkover in the final. The development was confirmed by Badminton Association of Malaysia through a social media post even before both pairs stepped onto the court. The result meant the top seed and world number 2, Pearly Tina, became the first Malaysian women's doubles pair to secure the title in the tournament in 15 years, since Vivian Ho, Woon Ki Wei last won it in 2011. The moment was carried forward by reigning mixed doubles world champions Cheng Tangji, Do Iwei, who staged a superb comeback to defeat Denmark's Mathias Christensen, Alexandra Boya at the final showdown. The triumph did not come easy for the third seeds, who went down 15-21 in the opening game. They faced further trouble when trailing behind in the second set, but kept their nerve to clinch the game 21-17 and forced a decider. Tanji Iwei then took complete control of the rubber set, dominating proceedings before sealing a 21-11 victory and a 5th World Tour title for the Malaysians. Last but not least, Malaysian men's doubles pair Go Zifei, Nur Izzuddin, Muhammad Rumsani ended their title drought since winning the India Open in January last year after clinching the Indonesia Masters 2026 title in Jakarta today. The world number 9 pair produced a solid performance to defeat home favourites Raymond Indra, Nicolaus Joaquin 21-19, 21-13 in 37 minutes. Manchester United loosened Arsenal's grip on the Premier League title race with a 3-2 win in North London on Sunday, thanks to stunning second-half goals by Patrick Dorgu and Matthias Cunha. Victory would have restored Arsenal's 7-point lead over chasers Manchester City and Aston Villa, both of whom won this weekend. But Mikel Arteta's side instead left the door open as they lost at home for the first time this season. Well, that concludes our news for now. Until next time, I'm Otto Othman. Salam Malaysia Madani. Thanks for watching.